time to eat, we'll pause, and then we'll ask Vince to do some further reflections. As everybody in the room knows, Vince has been a very, very active baseball person on the part in Western New York and on the national scene. Not only his concern and his activities in Buffalo and in Jamestown and throughout the entire P.O.N.Y League, the NYP League, or whatever name we gave that league over the years, depending on the membership. The one thing that was the glue to that program, and the one thing that kept it going, and why we're at College Stadium tonight enjoying Jammer baseball, if there's one single thing that caused that to happen, that was the life and the dedication of Vince McNamara. I had the opportunity to be one of the board officers back in the 60s when Vince was a very strong president of that league, and we were in trouble many, many seasons. But it was only through his dedication and the respect that Major League Baseball had for Vince that the P.O.N.Y League and the NYP League survived and lived to be the best minor league operation in the country. Many of us know, some of you maybe in the room, by his participation as playing in Celoron Park for Billy Webb Spiders. I know by reading about it and sitting around the coffee shops and people talking about Vince's playing baseball there. I picked up a thing the other night. It was a 1965 Jamestown High School football program book, and listed one of the officials was the name McNamara. So he's touched everybody in many, many ways. Park Catchpole has real memories because Park was a mascot, as you know, from one of our previous meetings at Celoron, and of course Vince played shortstop at Celoron Park and a lot of other things. So all of you have your own individual memories and your own individual thoughts of Vince, but the one thing that we all collectively have today, that we're pleased and proud that Vince is with us today. So Vince, if you can, it's very relaxed and we go very easy. Just want to reflect about some of the baseball memories that you have of Jamestown and Celoron and all of the other things, and guys and girls will probably ask you questions as time goes on, thoughts that they have and things they want to have a little bit more detail on. So Vince, nice to have you with us.
Thank you very much. May I remain sitting?
Yes, please do.
I've got to confess to you people that I've been negligent about reading a book that was given to me about 5 years ago. And knowing I was coming down here to be with you today, and I talked with Mike Maloney, I said, what the hell do they want me to talk about, Mike? He said, I don't know. So I started putting some things together. And I went and got this book off the rack. I don't know who gave this to me. Only the Ball Was White, written by a guy named Peterson. Joe Overfield knows him very well. In fact, Joe has a picture, he has a picture in here that Joe Overfield gave him in this book. And I called Joe about it. This guy's one hell of a writer. And the thing that struck me so forcefully about this guy, just coming through this book, they talk about Celoron was a village on Chautauqua Lake about 3 miles west of Jamestown in southwestern New York, whose sole claim to attention was a big amusement park. I remember that very well. On Decoration Day, we would go out there, put on our uniforms and parade from Celoron Park over to the ballpark, which was just around the corner. And we would not get paid for that day down there. We'd take that money and Billy Webb would invest it in rain insurance. So we never got rained down there. I remember that. But the village was their Chautauqua Assembly, a collection of summer schools offering education and entertainment. Chautauquans who wearied of the cultural life could go down the lake by steamboat and enjoy the more plebeian amusement of Celoron, including the Acme Giants. That was the team that played here for Jamestown. And here it is here. Celoron Bombard, that's what they call it. You got murdered the first day in there. Bradford was in that league too, but this goes way the heck back. And I was so sort of proud to have been a part, having been associated with so many of these fine ball players. Satchel Paige, every time I looked up, he was at Celoron Park throwing fast balls at me. Or running in the outfield and grabbing a ball. The people know that Satchel Paige could play outfield just as well as he could pitch. We played a triple header down in Pittsburgh against the Crawfords. We were down by automobile from Jamestown, drove down there. We played a twilight ball game on a Friday night, a double on Saturday. And although I remember Satchel Paige playing center field, and that first game was Friday night out there, and he could run and throw and everything else. And on Saturday, where's Joe Nagle here? Is Joe still alive?
No, Joe's gone.
Is he left us?
Yes.
He left us permanently?
Yes.
and I can talk freely. Joe was playing third base, and I was the shortstop down there at Pittsburgh against the Crawfords, the greatest doggone black team, color team that I ever saw. And Satchel was in center field. And they beat us on Friday night. Now, the first game was a doubleheader on Saturday. We were up by 1, and this guy from over here, Forestville, right, Wolf was a pitcher, right-hand pitcher?
Yeah.
Wolf, right-hand pitcher, Joe? Wolf. There's Wolf was from Forest.
Right hand.
He was beating this team 1-0, and it got to be about the 6th inning. We were playing 7, and there was a pop fly went over with this hitter up there. I think it was Chesterton or something. That name, big strong. Charleston. He was playing first base. And he was up there, and he popped one over behind third base, and I was over there ready to get it, and Joe come over, I'll take it, and he got hit in the head with a goddamn. That's why I wanted to speak freely. Joe, forgive me. I didn't want to tell anybody. But then Charleston on the next pitch drove it out of the ballpark and beat us 2-1. That was the only one of the 3 games we could have won that series. But Joe was my friend and my buddy, a good third baseman. But the guy that couldn't make that trip was the guy from the Pete something. They had 2 guys come over from the car shop and play first base and third base. And they couldn't make it, so Joe had to play that day. That's why he was in there. That's why we lost that ball game. But this book struck me because there's so much in it about Jamestown, about the Acme Giants. They call this the Iron and Oil League broke up. This was a kind of league, the Oil and Iron League. Now, as an aside, we're talking about the Nip League, the Pony League. Let's talk about that. P.O.N.Y. Protect our national youth. We talked about it as Pennsylvania, Ontario, New York. Some guys got together in Washington and decided they were going to have a youth league, and they were going to call it Pony, Protect Our National Youth. Mike Canavino over near me every time I see him, he said, "What league are we in today?" He didn't know. He said, "We're playing like the kids." So we had to give up our name because we did not incorporate. They did over there. They took our name away from us. So what we're looking around for a name for the league, and they come up with some silly names, Like today, they got to get lavender in there to make the women feel happy. They got to dress it up to satisfy the fans instead of educating the fans that this is baseball. We played according to the rules. But we come up and we finally decided that we'd call it the Nip League because we go back to the original New York and Pennsylvania, and because it was on the railroad, and that's the only means of communication they had was going back and forth on the train to meet their schedules. That's why the York-Penn League got the name of New York-Penn, and I prevail upon the guys to go to that. So this book is tremendous. If you get a chance to read it. I'm going to read it now. Oh. But I get to talking about guys that I met in this league, and the greatest.
Benny, can I interrupt you? What would you like to eat for lunch?
I want the second one, grilled chicken.
Thank you. Good.
Okay. The guy that I admired so much down here in Jamestown when I was playing ball was Hugh Bedians. Just as modest as the day was long. And here I am, a cocky 18, 19-year-old kid playing ball with a guy who pitched in the World Series. And he not only pitched, but he beat Christy Mathewson, won, and he saved another one in the same series. And I didn't believe that this guy was wearing that button in his lapel here because he was a champion with the World Series. I didn't believe the guy I was playing ball with. How fortunate I was to be with him and Swat Erickson. What another jewel. Those were the fellows that made it easy for me to play, to enjoy playing. And I remember when Swat Erickson shut out the Boston Bees with one hit. He got with 2 outs in the ninth. They put a pinch hitter in, and he had beaten them. He had scored driven in a winning run. And I recall Swat that day, how happy he was in the dressing room after. And they only got 1 hit off of him. And is Stewie McGuire dead?
Yes.
Is he? I can speak freely, huh?
Yeah.
Swat was so successful that Montreal came into the next day, and and they were looking for somebody as a backup pitcher. They were in a drive for the International League Championship. And I've heard it by rumor, not fact, of course, that when they approached the sports department, as anybody would, looking for information on a ball player, they unfortunately met Stewie McGuire, who told them that he owned the franchise of what Swat Ownership, which was not the truth. And that's why Swat never got back to play organized baseball again. But I always remember that. And I also remember that that good black guy was the best catcher of all time. A great friend of you, beat it. And I remember one day in the ballpark out here when he and his, what the heck was his name?
Gibson.
Who?
Josh Gibson.
Gibson, Josh Gibson. That's right, thank you. I remember how he and you used to kid one another like hell. And I remember one day out here in the ballpark, Josh Gibson told Huey, he said, Huey, I'm going to hit that tree out there in right center field with a line drive. That old Huey was a grand guy. He smiled, he said, you are like hell. Well, when he come up to hit, you threw one of his good curves at him. Josh dropped his left leg back and opened up wide, and by God, if he didn't hit the ball line drive, first bounce and hit that tree. Boy, what a hitter he was. He was a great hitter. But that was the thing that I enjoyed most, looking back on my career in baseball, was the enjoyment of being associated with these guys out here in Jamestown. I did football, basketball here, did a lot of things down here all my life. I've been down here in Jamestown, and this is where I started, believe me. I always say that to people, I got started in Jamestown. I only started it and liked it because I liked the kind of a uniform. You beat it more when they played it at the Shrine and played the Knights of Columbus in Buffalo Ballpark, and I went out and watched the ball game. And I was in trail when Harry Manning, who was a fireman in Buffalo, was catching for the Jamestown Ball Club. And Eddie Mancuso was, this is not for publication, so can we kill this part of it? Eddie Mancuso, who's deceased, Eddie won't mind my telling it, but it might go in the wrong place. Eddie Mancuso was called out on a high pitch ball by Earl Chamberlain. Does that name ring a bell? Earl Chamberlain, an umpire? Earl Chamberlain. He used to do all the big games around here. He worked in Jamestown. He called him out on a high pitch, and Eddie Mancuso reached back and raised his mask and gave him a belt. He was gone right then. Billy Webb fired him. and that's how I got down there, because Harry Manning brought me down and thought I could do the job. And I was so pleased that I had the opportunity coming down here and playing. And I was here when Joe Gallagher, well, I got a picture of Joe Gallagher when we played the Pittsburgh Pirates. When Joe Gallagher came down and played, he was an outfielder with the Yankees, but he played the infield in Buffalo. And he was a third baseman the day we played the Pirates, the Pittsburgh Pirates, with Archie Vaughan at shortstop, and the great shortstop of all time, Hans Wagner, telling us that Archie Vaughan was going to be the National League batting champion in a couple of years, and he was. But I remember Komorski hit a line drive to Joe Gallagher at third base, and he just got his hand up there, and the ball went out in left field. And I said to him many years after, when he was playing for the Yankees, that's when you decided to go to the outfield, because you knew your life was in it. And he, by the way, is the nephew of my dear friend, Monsignor Gallagher, down at the old cathedral. And our association together goes way back to South Buffalo with the Gallaghers. That's how I know these fellows. But on that team was, we had that kid from Duke, the good pitcher. Let me get it. The good pitcher that came down there. Bill Joyce. Bill Joyce was down here, was pitching for Jamestown. Remember Bill Joyce? He died down here. He pitched for Duke. He pitched in the leagues. And they had,
he worked for the Manufacturers Association.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He was a Jamestown man.
Okay.
But all those fellows, all those fellows I was associated with, Joe Gallagher, I was pleased to read that in this book here that we picked the right guy to put in the Hall of Fame in Buffalo. And I called Joe. I said, Joe, did we put a Charlie Grant in the Hall of Fame in Buffalo? The guy that John McGraw said was an Indian by the name of Totohoma. They even have a picture of him. It looks like an Indian. He said, no, we put the other grad in. He was the infielder and second baseman, and they write about him quite prominently. So this book to me was an eye-opener, but it only confirms to me the leadership that you had down in Jamestown, the Head Start recognized as one of the outstanding cities in baseball before the blacks were ruled out of baseball. And you had some great ball players here. Frank Grant is the guy that we put in Buffalo. This is a picture that Joe Overfield sent to this author of this book to put in the book. But all in all, it all comes down to Jamestown, and I remember a guy named Taft used to coach your basketball team. A nice guy. I remember that step going to the dressing room that you always had sticking out in the floor, because I tripped over it a couple of times as an official. And you had a kid that played football down here that went on to one of the colleges that came back here, a big guy. Huh?
McCusker?
Please?
Jim McCusker?
Yeah. He was a fullback?
He was a lineman.
Who was a good back here as a coach from Union College?
Oh,
Sam
Sam Hammerstrom.
Hammerstrom. Is he still around?
No, he's dead.
He's dead?
Sam's still
He's
living.
living in Arizona.
His brother just died.
I came down to do your Dunkirk game. No, to do your Olean games. Hooky Fry was there. And Hooky Fry had engaged the attention he got of Norm Utek. Norm Utek came over from Bonaventure, and he was one of the greatest athletes ever produced out here in any area. He could do everything so well. He gave up playing professional baseball. In fact, when they came down to sign Lefty McCluskey down here, he didn't want to go. He was from Bonaventure also. He didn't want to go and play professional ball. He wanted to teach school. I beg your pardon. He wanted to sign Norm Utek. He wouldn't go. He wanted to stay teaching and wanted to coach. And McCluskey, the left-hander, he's the guy signed. He got the chance to go to the big leagues. But Norm Utek was here with Hooky Fry at a ball game, and the big guy was coaching against Olean. And Luke Urban was my umpire. Luke Urban of Canisius College, my umpire. And he called me. He come running up, blowing his whistle. He said, "It's coaching from the sideline." And it was trying to finish in the game. It was very critical, very crucial, that particular part of the game. And I said, "Who was coaching?" He says, "I ain't going to tell you." I said, "You got to tell me somebody was coaching." So he said, "All right, I'll tell you." He said, it was Luke Urban. I said, "Luke Urban's what? I think he's my official." He said, Luke Urban, he said, was, all he called the guy's name, and he went from a four-man defense to a three-man defense. He said, I call the foul for coaching from the sideline. Oh, could you imagine that in a ball game? And I was going to get killed that day, but fortunately, the big Swede, that was his name, he bailed me out down there. But I thought we were going to have murder over there on the ballpark that day. We played here at Jamestown. But those days were days. I remember we used to play a series at the end of the season. Dunkirk and Jamestown would always play a 2-out-of-3 series. The winning team would get 55% of the gates, of all the gates, whatever gates we had. Loser would get the 45. And Harry Manning was batting after me. I was the leadoff. It was a crucial game. Each of us had a game apiece. And Harry said to me, "If you get on," this was down toward the finish of the game. He said, "If you get on, I'm gonna help you out. You can run." He said, I'll help you out for stealing." And he said, "We'll see what happens." So he did that. And I got help from him, and he helped me interfere a little bit with the catcher. And I got down to second base all right. And when I slid, I picked a point, a spot that was wet. And I overslid the base. I got tagged out with the potential tying run. So Harry Manning after that hit a line drive. And by the way, Harry Manning played for John Dunn, the old man, with the Baltimore Orioles. He was a catcher. He had great experience. So that was the only place I could overslid the base, and I did. And on the way home, Gubba Guy, remember Gubba Guy, the outfielder? Gubba Guy, Johnny O'Malley. Gubba Guy, center fielder. Johnny O'Malley. Gubba Gibe, G-I-E-B, Gibe. Good hitter.
They called him Al Guy, didn't they?
I don't know, we
Yeah.
call him Gubby, yeah, Alley Guy, yeah,
Alley
you're right,
Guy, yeah.
Alley Guy.
Yeah.
I remember he sat alongside me going home and he didn't talk all the way to Buffalo.
These guys can't remember Vince because they're too young.
But Gubby Guy, he had a brother who was a pitcher. Eddie. But he reached over, he said to me, why the hell don't you learn how to slide? So Harry Manning took me to the firehouse on Chicago Street the next day, put down some pillows and taught me how to slide. That's how I learned to slide. But that was after the fact, we had a lot to do. But Jamestown has always been something close to me. I've always felt very much at home in Jamestown. I've always been identified with it. To have been identified with some fine people like down there. They are the greatest.
Vince, how did you get involved in the New York-Penn League?
I knew I wasn't going to go any place as my baseball days were starting to run down. I wanted to become an umpire. So I became an umpire for the American Legion. And I used to be assigned, every Legion post had its own league, and I was assigned to Delaware Park on Saturday morning to umpire. I worked for about 3 or 4 years, the Western New York Umpires Association. And Tom Mercer was my superintendent. And I was working about one day at St. Patrick's Recreation Center, and I got called to the phone, and I said, and the guy on the other side said, go to Batavia tonight and work in the Nipley. Didn't tell me what time the game was, what to wear, who my partner was or anything. It was Tom Mercer. So Mr. Mercer worked for Mr. Bob Steller, who was the editor of the Buffalo News. And we never gave Mr. Steller the credit that he deserved for what he did for baseball, including all those guys who went to the big league, to the New York-Penn League. They never recognized him properly. But I got the idea that maybe it was somebody pulling my leg. I didn't think I was ready to start umpiring in an organized league. I used to go to Shingle House and places like that in News League. Yeah, I did. On Shingle House, I was every second week. I did my penance. Then I'd have the Leroy and Batavia series all by myself. No. But I didn't think I was ready, so I called Mr. Mercer at Mr. Stedler's office in the Buffalo Evening News at that time. And I said, did you just tell me to go to work at Batavia tonight? He said, yes, God damn it, can't you hear? That's the way he was. But he backed the umpires the same way. So I went there that night. And the Cardinals were working with Hamilton. And they had a big first baseman who was running the ball club for him. My partner got into a little difficulty at home plate. And I came ambling in slowly to see if I could help to direct the traffic a little bit. And this big guy, Don Hurst, first baseman of the Cardinals, now a manager for the Cardinals at that time. He said, what the hell are you doing in here?
Tom Hurst.
Don Hurst, H-U-R-S-T.
Was a pitcher.
Yeah, well, pitcher, outfielder, catcher, he was the manager of the Hamilton Ball Club.
He's still living.
Well, I can tell the story on him anyway, because he was my first, he said to me, what are you doing in here, a little semi-pro SOB? I said, what was that? He repeated, I said, you out. It was the first time we ever threw a guy out, and it had to be him, and I learned my lesson. Don't take anything from them because they're going to give you more. But I always remember that was my start in umpiring, and that's how I started. Then when I got to be president, I was put on the rules committee for about 25 years. And I still wonder why we don't all play the same rules. Why the Little League have one set, and why the colleges have one set. Why do you have 8 boards who appeal protests? Why do you need 8? And at the meetings, we'd have all these fellows come in, where they'd sit there and see what the rules committee would be doing. There were only 9 of us to vote. All the rest would be sitting there in the gallery. And I would always ask for the possibility of one set of rules. Never mind, you can't slide, you got to do this. Why? Baseball wasn't played that way. I played baseball in a coal yard, and the only way I learned was having dirt under my fingernail. And the only time I ever played baseball, we got enough guys to play 1 at cat 1. Unless you did both of those things, 1 at cat 1 and dirt under your fingernails, you have not played baseball. Pardon?
Right.
But they all have their own pet ideas. You give a rule book to some of these guys, they want to parse every sentence, every word, and take it all apart. They got to have a comma here, they got to have a hyphen here. For what? It's a new way of saying 3 strikes are out. But I love the game of baseball because I came from the first ward. The first ward in Buffalo still has a bad name. It's deserved it. We earned it. That's where every day you had a fight to go to school. I had to go across the tracks. I had a fight. That's why I got busted knuckle, cuts over my eyes. But you learn the hard way. And my father used to say, if I catch you with that gang down the street, I'll kick hell out of you. Get over to the ball at the cold yard and play baseball. And when I laugh at these guys when I hear them talking about playing night basketball, that's nothing new. It was tried in Buffalo when I was director of recreation, but they didn't want to put up the money to put in the proper maintenance to be sure buildings wouldn't get torn apart, so I wouldn't give them the key. But now they're going to do that out of Washington.
Vince, what was the scenario that you became president of the P.O.N.Y League?
Mr. Stettler was a very discreet man. Mr. Stettler showed me a lot of intelligence. I watched him for 4 years as his umpire-in-chief. He showed me great intelligence when it came time to recommend the president. He recommended not me, but Dick McCabe. Dick McCabe was an ex-pro ball player who deserved the opportunity and did a wonderful job. I played shortstop on one of the Dick McCabe Simon Pure teams. My brother Paul played City Sisti played Dan Carnevale. We were all shortstops one time or another. Dick McCabe had much more experience than me, but the search committee made up of Art Mullen, Vince Callahan, and Gershio. I think his name was Gershio, down in Lockport. They individually called me, having seen me around the ballpark for 4 years. They thought they knew me better than Dick McCabe, and that's the only reason they went for me. But I told them, I said, you guys are crazy enough to want me, I'll try it. That's what I did.
What year was that?
1939.
And how many years did you serve as president?
39? 39. 39.
30, how many years did you serve?
About 39, I don't know.
39 years.
It's a long time.
That's a long time.
You served longer than any other president, didn't you?
I never looked for that record.
It just happened.
I was just,
I think rumor has it.
I'm lucky to get out with my both eyes like this one's going bad. That is one of the casualties of umpiring, trying to get that outside pitch.
They don't give it today, man.
Who were some of the great managers that were in the league while you were president?
Well, I remember Bissonette. In fact, I played ball for, what the hell did I play ball? I played ball for Buffalo, one ball game, part of a ball game. Took Andy Cole's place at shortstop. And Bissonette was the manager. That was 1927 when they won the International League Championship. Cole was the shortstop, Andy Cole. Malone was the second baseman. Bissonette was the first baseman. They established a record, Cole, Malone, and Bissonette for double plays. Well, I got in a ball game and took Andy Cole's place. So that was my only experience playing in an organized professional league like that. All my experience was down in Jamestown. But now I was umpiring at Bradford one time, and Bissonette was managing. And Bissonette was an SOB to get along with umpiring. And I was just waiting to get a shot at him, because he used to come in and give the umpires trouble slowly. And he was a hell of an athlete. And he would turn away from the umpires and he'd look at the stand and he'd continue to talk to the umpire and berating him. And the people of Bradford would go like that too. And he thought they were cheery yips. So he did that to me one time, and he turned around, he saw what I had, walked away from him. He said, "You can't do that to me." I said, "I can't. I did, and I walked away from you in the Buffalo ballpark. Now get out of here." So he came into the dressing room after. Oh, by the way, the dressing room at Bradford was great. It was where they sold tickets. The one at Olean was greater. That was the dressing room where you dressed with the team, and if you had a good night, you'd find your clothes in the commode. If you had a bad night, they'd be messed up a little bit. And I have to laugh when I read about all these, what they're going to do. They're doing it, God bless them. We couldn't get a pair of shoelaces. Take that off. Cut that off. We couldn't get a pair of shoelaces. We only survived because, as I was asked in Olean one night, by the mayor, what happened to our franchise? I said, simple, you ran out of money. You were the guy supporting the game. The town supported it because when it was organized, with Mr. Rickey and Mr. Stedler, they had all the cities involved, and they're all teams that played in the New York, in the News League. Because there was no staying over at night, we had to keep down the expenses. So that's why we were so closely knitted together at the Stars. And so I had a hell of a time, and I could see what was coming. We had a guy over there in Utica that has the Baseball America. What's his name? Baseball America, Miles Wolf. That ring a bell? Are we on the air?
No, we're not.
Please help me, I want to say something. Please. I'm going to talk with you people about what I think is wrong with baseball now. They have to do the things we did. But they got too many guys up there want to count money rather than do the right thing. Miles Wolf was over there in Utica. He was a part owner of the ball club that owed $1,800. And we were up in a bind on what we were going to do about it, the board of directors. They were worrying about the future of the league. And Miles Wolf said that he would like to take the franchise, but he didn't have any money to put up for it. Our directors gave him the franchise for what was outstanding. You won't see that happen today. And the same thing happened up in Geneva. They've got to do the same goddamn thing. If they love baseball the way our guys did, they got to give a little bit. They got to have somebody come in who are baseball people, and not some CPO to come in there and tell you how to run a computer. You don't need that. You need somebody who believes in this game of baseball, that's not totally motivated by marketing. It's got to have a semblance of feeling. So the feeling that the fans have. Whether some of these guys have the feeling of the fan. They don't have. And they said the guys come in, all they're interested in some of these birds, and Monday morning stock report. How many automobiles have we sent of viewings? Sounds like General Motors. But I don't mean to be rude, but that's what I hope somebody is going to come out of this thing. If they're going to go into a huddle and see if they can answer it. That's the only way to answer it.
Vince, I have a question. The day I umpired with you in Bradford, you were an umpire. Was you president and umpiring, or was you just umpiring before you became president?
No, I was filling in that time for Shylock's partner. Remember Shylock, the great American League umpire?
Mr. Shylock?
Yes, sir. Yeah, he had his partner, and he both came from Scranton. And Mr. Stedler said to me that his partner, Al something, wanted to go home to get his wife so he could spend some time together. It was early in the season, and he says, we got to have an umpire. I said, I'll work. So I took the...
Incidentally, I umpired with Nestor Shylock.
Yeah.
While I'm talking about Nestor Shylock, that umpires in the NYP League went to the bigs in the American League. I umpired with Shylock, Ken Kaiser, Jake O'Donnell, Art France, and a few others I can't remember. Now, you care to talk about that game in Bradford where you and I umpired?
I don't remember it.
Well,
I remember doing a game in
see, you
Batavia.
gave them all the good news. Now, if I want to talk about, well, let's say that wasn't too good news, like I had to put a guy out of the ball game. In that game that you were the plate umpire, a fan came after you, and I gave him, I got your mask,
Did you get it?
and I hit him with a mask.
I-
Chased him away. We had to have police protection. You remember that?
I know I don't remember, Joe, and I do remember one night a lady with one of those sleeve, a purse on a sling. She swung it from up the stands. You had to walk by the stands. He hit me right across the face. Well, that was a tough place to work.
What memories do you have of Pitler?
Pitler, he was a very, very interesting guy. Jake Pitler was a grand guy. Jake Pitler used to sit in the dugout, and all he would say, "It wasn't too low, Mac."
Jake Pitler.
Jake Pitler.
Yeah.
He was a Dodger. He was strictly a Dodger. He is partially responsible for the rule that was instituted in baseball, that they put a ramp from the rubber to home plate. The Dodgers used to, in those days, with Jake Bittler, used to come in and dump a glob of clay in front of the rubber, and then the left-hand pitcher would come and break off the curveball and fall in the hole. So, Joe Brown Jr. and I were on the rules committee. Joe was with Pittsburgh at the time. And Joe came in with the idea that there should be a ramp, and it's true. Should be a ramp so that all the statistics are established under the same conditions for all the pitchers. That's why the rule got in the book. And then we come in and we dropped the pitchers were getting ahead of the hitters. We dropped it down from 14 to 10. But the Dodgers guys never went down. They kept it up there. You can't keep watching them all the time.
Chris, did I ever read where was the P.O.N.Y League during your time, were they the test league for the designated hitter?
We were. We in Rochester. We were part of it. We were the ones else, yes.
They were selected as the test league, weren't they?
Yes, that's when they put the rule in for experimental purposes.
Right.
Which was responsible for putting that rule in the book.
Do you remember what year that was?
And putting that rule in the book also opened the door for the designated hitter to go into the American League. Because over in Hawaii, P.O.N.Y used to have us in the sessions all the time. Now there are 3 guys from the National, 3 from the American, and 3 guys from the National Association. I was one of the 3. And I always felt that it should be given a chance, the designated hitter. And some of the other guys, now the 3 National League guys were dead against it. American League guys for it. But they needed 7. They needed 7 votes to pass it. But they couldn't get anybody over in the National League to vote, see? So I sat, the last session we had in Hawaii, Bowie Kuhn had us in the morning about 7:30, about 8 or 10 meetings we had on that designated hitter. And I sat alongside of Chuck Feeney. Are we off the air? I sat alongside of Chuck Feeney. And Chuck, the American League came in and asked for the right to experiment with the designated hitter. And they needed 8 votes to experiment for 1 year. Now they needed 7 votes to pass the designated hitter, but they needed 8 votes to experiment for 1 year. So they come in the American League and they asked for permission under the rules established for experimental rules, that you could do it with permission for 8 votes from the Rules Committee, and then be evaluated and voted upon by the committee as a whole. And I sat alongside of Chubb, and the American League has got 7 votes on roll call, 7 votes lined up, and the last guy to vote was Chubb Feeney sitting alongside of me. And they called Chubb Feeney's name, and he voted 8. Experiment. I said, you know what you did? He said, well, I said, you'll be fired tomorrow. The National League. He says, no, Vinny. Now this is what he said. He said, if things go the way I think they're going to go, we'll have the designated hitter in the National League next week. That's how they looked upon the designated hitter. My plea to them at the meeting, I hope we're not on the air.
No.
My plea to them was, gentlemen, we have 2 sets of rules that we play baseball by. We have different uniforms, different protectors. I said, different rule books, but I said, we don't play the game by the same rule book. And I was trying to get them to, it's a great game, don't mess with it. That was a way back, that's got to be 25 or 30 years ago when I said that. You said something about my respect for the major leagues?
Yes.
That's why I think they respected me, because I stood for what I believe. And I thought for baseball, we are at a point now where we should have taken care of that years ago. But Chuck Feeney never got to, the National League never went for it, and Chuck passed away, and I dropped a note to Chuck's family. But the one nice thing about baseball is that you meet so many nice people off and on the field. On the field, you meet a guy playing alongside you, you holler over, good game, good play. In football, you don't get a chance to. If you say that, somebody's killing you. Somebody's going to get you, the basketball is sticking it down your throat. Baseball is a game of socializing, really, but I don't like to see them socializing in different uniforms and with umpires. I don't like to see them standing around doing nothing. Go someplace. But make the people know that you're doing your job, and don't act as though, well, you're just here for a basket picking. That's the way I look at baseball today. When I was the administrator of the American Association for 1 year, the time that Joe got sick, I got a call from Johnny Johnson. He said, we want you to go in the American Association and be the administrator for a year. I said, fine. One of the first things I did was insisting that there be no fraternizing, particularly guys, different uniforms, standing out there gabbing, passing the time of day. It gives the wrong impression to the fans. They're out there to see a game. They're not out there to see somebody play softball or have a picnic. It's a game of competition. That's the way it's got to be kept. Maybe that's why they like me.
Miss, what's the name Malevy mean to you? Greg
Oh,
Malevy.
Great man. He's had nothing but success. Success here, success on the blackboard. You know, in our league, we were the first league. We talk about working agreements. First league you ever have, there were no working agreements. The only working agreements you had was your friendship with somebody like you, higher classification. Like John Stiegelmeyer would call a McGraw, I need some help, and he'd have some help. Now, for Christ's sake, you gotta tell them, do you want to give up your working agreement? Now your hands are tied, you can't get to the guy you want to. But the first working agreement I want to tell you about was the one that I signed for the Red Sox with Corning. Corning just bought a franchise from Lockport for, I think it was $14,000. And we're having a convention in Atlanta. Joe Cronin was there with the Red Sox, Johnny Murphy. And we negotiated, and Johnny Murphy and I had lunch. He said, what do you want from me? I said, now this is the first breakthrough. I said, I think I would recommend that you pick up the tab for all the players' salaries and the manager also, if you name him. He said, we can do that. And he said, what else do you need? I said, a set of uniforms. That's what they got. That was the first breakthrough. I can say that honestly. Nobody had a working agreement before we had it. And nobody had any rules for umpires and managers until we had it. Craig Shaky, go to the league, you don't know what the hell's going to happen. When I came back, the guys were getting thrown out of the game, came back from the Army, no fine being levied. I went to work on that one. I got that changed quickly. Put them on notice, it's going to cost them $5. And if they don't behave, it's going to cost them $10. One time I had to call Wellsville to tell Paul Kavanaugh, Paul, I'd like to come down tomorrow night and bring him some letters that were sent to the following guys. I read a list off to him, and I said, I would like an interpreter. That's what Wellsville had a lot of Spanish-speaking people. I said, I want him to get in center field. So after the game was over, we went to center field, I had letters, and I called out the names, and I said, you owe $10? Now you owe $20. So I said, don't give me crap either. You're going to pay it or you're not going to play ball. That's why you had to have tight rules if you're going to have a good shift. I'd like to tell one story about Jerry Stockman. Jerry Stockman was one of the umpires who should have been in the big leagues. He should have made it. He just didn't have the desire. They had a little guy who was manager over at P.O.N.Y. What was his name? He was a big leaguer. What?
Corning?
Who?
In Corning?
Yes, who in Corning?
1951.
Yeah, a little guy.
Yep, I remember.
Second baseman. Ex-second baseman. Jerry Stockman called me on the phone to report that he was umpiring at Olean, and he said, I had trouble. I said, what happened? I'm waiting to get this little guy because he's on everybody's case. He's interrupting everybody.
I remember well.
Yeah, and I said, little guy. And I said, what did you do? He said, he spit on me. I said, Jerry, what did you do? He said, I spit back. I said, good night. And he said, I told him he'd hear from you tomorrow. I'd have got on his case, but I just dropped it right there. That's why Jerry never made the big leagues.
Since talking about umpires, tell us about your experience with the first female umpire.
First female, Bernice Guerra. I had a fight that went all the way through to the state law. That came to us to be our job, very unpleasant, because the guy who was the commissioner of baseball at that time was with Mark Clark over in Italy, and they wanted Mark Clark for commissioner, couldn't get him, so they recommended this other guy for the commissioner. So this fellow who got in a little difficulty around New York brought Bernice Guerra to the commissioner's office and said, we'd like to give this girl a chance of umpiring. And the commissioner then, instead of sloughing it off and taking care of it, said, I don't hire umpires. Well, who hires them? Frank Shaughnessy in the International, George Sisler in what the hell was it? Tommy Richardson, and who in the A? Vince McNamara. I was the passer. The other guy's duck. Okay, it came to a showdown, and I had a letter from that young lady asking for a chance to umpire, and I wrote back to her discouragingly, telling her that I thought she was picking the wrong profession because I said, it's a rough situation. I said, and I wouldn't want my mother or my sister umpiring. And I said, and we don't have facilities to take care of our next team. We only have facilities if we're lucky for visitors and home team. And by God, that letter was shown to me when I was on the stand in New York City, being tried. They were going to lower the boom on me. Phil P.O.N.Y was our president of the National Association at the time. And any contract I would sign with Bernice Guerra had to be endorsed by him. So he said, I'm not going to sign it. I said, well, I'm telling you, I'm going to sign it, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have her chaperoned around the last month of the league, somebody taking her, her husband or whoever else she has, taking her around so everybody can see a lady umpire. It's going to be a promotional effort. So it came down to Phil P.O.N.Y, and he wasn't going to sign it. So finally he did sign it. But Bernice Guerra should not have been there. A guy named, now the name hits me, a guy named Biaggi in New York. Does that name ring a bell, you guys? Biaggi?
Mario Biaggi?
Yeah.
Congressman?
Biaggi, no, this most highly decorated police officer in New York City history. The guy got in a bit of trouble. He got put in the slur.
He was a congressman too.
Yeah, he was
Mario Biaggi.
Mario Biaggi. He was her sponsor.
Yeah.
And when it happened, I don't know why I picked him up. I guess I was reading the New York papers about what was going on. But he was the guy who was behind her. And I assigned her at Phil P.O.N.'s endorsed her. And I assigned her to a game over at Geneva and part of a doubleheader, Geneva and Auburn, a rain-out game. And she was on base as the first game. She was good to go back in the base, hopefully in the second game. Now there was a forced play. The ball was thrown to second base and the guy wasn't tagged, but the ball was there plenty of time, and she called the runner safe. And you got the coach of Auburn hit the ceiling. He compared us out. What's this all about? She said, he didn't get tagged.
Oh.
On the field. Now, he says, the guy said to her, you made two mistakes. You made a mistake on that call, you made a mistake putting on that uniform. She finished that game and she took off like a BAB right out the front gate. She was supposed to come back for the second game. She never did. I'm still waiting for her to come back.
You were the first to permit a female umpire.
I was the first to have a black umpire. A guy named Bill James out of Buffalo who was working on the West Coast. A big athlete, a good, strong kid. Working in an aircraft factory out there. In those days, league presidents hired their own umpires directly by application, and you got the information yourself. No umpire developing program. You see the kind of a life we lived in baseball. We were on your own. There was nobody doing these things. Just like we had nobody trying to peddle your franchise for you. We did our own peddling. But then these guys come in to make some money. But anyhow,
Remember Jack Sanford?
Yeah,
He was the manager of Batavia.
yeah.
Well, then Ross Banger was an umpire and got married in Jamestown at home plate. Ross Badger he put Jack Sanford out of the ball game twice, and then Jack Sanford was the best man for Ross Badger's wedding in Jamestown. Now, do you remember of an umpire getting married at home plate?
I don't remember that.
Maybe I think it was Bob Stedler's day. See, I did umpiring for you for many years. You would assign me to baseball games at Bradford, Olean, Wellsville, Corning, Hornell, Binghamton, Geneva, Batavia, Lockport, Erie, Niagara Falls. I did as many as 50 games for you
Good,
during your first couple years as president.
good.
And I enjoyed every bit of it. And now, while talking, you mentioned Jake Pittler. He was the manager of Olean. See, now I told a story about Jake Pittler. I'm going to repeat it. See, Jake Pittler was a showman. In other words, the manager of the Olean baseball team in the NYP League, on a given Sunday, he assigned me to a game at Olean. Jake Pittler was the coach, manager, coaching third base. Now, being a showman, he could antagonize people watching the game, the fans. In other words, he'd get the fans motivated, arguing with an umpire. For example, I'll give you a given day. I was the base umpire at Olean, and there was a close play at first base. The ball just beat him there. You're out. Jake
What would you like to
Pittler
drink?
was coaching third base. He ran all the way from third, across home plate, came over to first base, and now he, being a showman, first thing he did, he took his cap off, had a lot of gray hair, and he says, "Now, Lone, I think you're a good umpire." And the fans didn't know what he was saying, only the gesture that he was going, "Now, Lone, I think you're a good umpire." See, the way he was talking about telling me what I'm saying, he'd say, "Now, Lone, everybody tells me you got good eyesight. I think you got good eyesight. Where the hell were you on that play?" All right, so with his cap on, ran all the way to third base. Now, that wasn't grounds to put him out. But now, hey, when the inning ended, Frank Belloc, being the plate umpire, he called me. When the inning ended, he says, "Now, Bone, what did he tell you?" I says, "He told me I was a good umpire." He told me, "What?" He said, "It looked like he was killing you." It looked like he was, and in the meantime, when he was doing this gesture to me, the fans were yelling, "Kill him! Give him some more! Kill the umpire! Kill me for the close play." Well, anyhow, while I'm talking, the first time I saw Vince McNamara, he was playing basketball in Jamestown at the YMCA. And believe you me, when he played basketball, I'm glad I wasn't, because he was like a bulldozer. He would dribble that ball, boy, and you better get out of his way. All right, then McNamara played basketball, football in Buffalo, played baseball. What else was there? Oh, was an umpire, president of the NYP League. And there are a lot of good stories that I'm not going to tell because
Please
it's
don't
not
go
good news. Well, anyhow, it was a pleasure, Vince, to umpire with Jerry Stockman. See, now, why I'm mentioning Jerry Stockman, on a given day, he umpired the bases with me in Erie. And Frank Frenchie was the manager of Erie. Does that ring a bell with you, Vince?
Who's that?
Frank Frenchie, the manager of Erie. Well, it could have been before your time. Well, anyhow, Jerry Stockman was the base umpire this given day, and in the second inning, Erie had a runner on third base. And the ball was hit to the shortstop, and the runner on third base tried to score, and he got out. I'm the plate umpire. "You're out." Frank Frenchie ran from the dugout, he come up to me, he says, now, well, you missed that play. Where, you missed, I said to him, where were you when I called that play? He said, in the dugout. I said, I was right here. You come and argue with me again like this, I'm gonna be here 9 innings, I told him. You wanna be here that long, get in the dugout and shut up. Well, in the 4th inning, same play situation, you're out. He come up on the top step, Frank Frenchie, I looked at him and I said, you know what I told you. So he went back in. Now when the inning ended, Jerry Stockman came down, he shook my hand. He said, now, well, you might be a little guy, but you look like you're 6 feet tall when you're on the bases, when you're umpiring baseball. He said, it's a pleasure to umpire with you. Well, so much for that. And you mentioned Satchel Paige, Vince. Now, I umpired a game.
I told you,
Satchel Paige pitched.
Did I
You
tell
were
you
playing
about Bill
center
James,
field.
what happened to Bill James? I let him hang.
Yes.
Bill
yes,
James was that first black guy I ever brought in our league.
Yes. Right
The high
now.
jumper from high school in Buffalo,
There's a,
who qualified with one of the best young umpires I ever saw. I tried to sell him to the league presidents. That's how you move your umpires in those days, at convention, unsuccessfully. He said, what do I do now, Mr. Mack? Bill James. I said, back to the aircraft factory. Nobody will touch you. He would have been in the big leagues. Bill James. But a grand young man. He couldn't make it. Now, Bernice Carroll, you heard about her. How about Pam Postima?
who?
Pam Postima.
I have her book.
Bob knows her. Who's that, Bob?
She's an
Pam.
umpire. She's a lady who's got a suit against baseball because they turned her loose.
Pam Postima.
Oh, yeah.
Pam
She
Postima.
wrote, she wrote that book, You Gotta Have Balls to Make It in This League.
That's why she never made it.
That's right.
I lay about her. She worked the exhibition game at Cooperstown. And I was at a ballpark one night, and the umpire-in-chief was there. Was going to be at Cooperstown the next day. He said, oh, at that time I was the administrator for the
Who was the girl
American Association.
in the office for Vince that was named McNamara?
And
Your daughter?
he told me
Your sister?
that Pam Postima
Was her first?
was going to work the game the next day in Cooperstown. And then she came to see me in the office afterwards and told me the same thing. But it's an odd situation. That a girl could be selected to umpire a ball game of that importance at Cooperstown, that annual game they play down there. And you didn't see any merit in her umpire. I thought she was an excellent umpire. She was a hell of a ball and strike umpire, but she was too female. I don't mean to insult anybody. But she said to me, what do I do wrong? I said, you're too much woman. Why? I said, well, let me point it out to you. It was in the Buffalo ballpark. I said, that fly ball down there behind third base, that you went down when you pointed, get down on your knee and pointed where the ball hit. I said, who cares? You shouldn't have done that. You should have gone right about your business, go out in the infield, see if there's anything else for you to do. Not stand there and wait for everybody to throw something at you. I think it doesn't matter, of course. I said, you're acting too much like a woman. You can't cut it that way, I said, umpire. You gotta do it a little roughly. You gotta be a little bit more relaxed. But she's a good umpire. But they got she drives a truck, by the way.
Yeah.
She's
That's right.
she's a good young girl. She's got $1 million. She's gonna win that one.
As where do you see the future of minor league baseball with the player development contracts and all of the things that are in the future?
I'm glad I'm not in it.
I'm glad you're not in it.
I'm glad I'm not in it. Are we off the air?
Yes.
We will be.
Everything is done by committee now. You were a part of it the last good days. You remember, I think you were, when we had that resolution passed that no city could peddle their franchise without bringing it back, asking permission from the rest of the guys?
Yes.
And together with the terms of the proposed new contract and who the people were coming in? Do you remember that?
Yes.
I could see what was happening, and it's happened. It's happened. You got guys in there now peddling franchises, for Christ's sake, that you, pardon my vocabulary, that used to own franchises, now they see the Americans peddling them. They're marketing them. And that's what's happening to it. In those days, I saw that coming in, when that was passed, it was unanimously accepted. And I thought that was a hell of a thing you guys did. And if they made them all do that, there wouldn't be these guys coming in the back door through the M&T Bank, or Sears Roebuck or somebody. They'd have to come through the front door and put in an application to the board of directors of each league to be taken. That's what should have preserved baseball. But they didn't do that. So, and I say to you, I'm glad I couldn't, how do I get, another thing is, double meaning words are used. We never use those. You know that.
No.
When we came down here for you for the Special Olympics, you remember that?
Yeah.
You called me and you said you're going to have a Special Olympics. I never heard of it before. So we brought a guy down from, Fred Hunt gave me a guy from hockey. We had a guy from football. You and I represented baseball. And we had the basketball. We have here for the first time I ever had anything to do with the Special Olympics was done out here in the ballpark. And the only reason that thing's so cold, and it's a pattern today. It's a pattern today, it's a shame it has to be that way. But it's so successful because somebody connected with an important family and has a youngster who's a victim of that. And they use that as a stepping stone for appeals. That's the way things are done today.
Who's going to be the first NYP or Pony League graduate into the Hall of Fame?
I don't know.
Pete Rose is going to be it?
I don't know. I don't think Pete is humble enough. I think if he only said, "I'm sorry," he would have been all forgiven. You remember the first day he came into the ballpark?
No.
At Geneva?
I don't have it.
The guy played second base, signing him in the manager. Pete Rose said to him, "Who's the second baseman?" And the manager said, "I am." He said, "You were." So help me.
Wow.
Who was that manager? The guy with a T. He told the manager he was his days were numbered. And that's the way he played it.
How about Nellie Fox?
He's a good one.
He should be there, shouldn't he?
Yes, he should. I think Pete Rose should be there too, goddammit.
I agree.
But they gotta say, hey, I'm sorry. That's all. Don't think you're bigger than the world. Don't try to jam it down somebody's throat.
Right.
Just say, I blew it, I'm sorry. Nobody's going to hold it against you. Because we all blow it. We're pretty lucky.
Vince, did big league teams make practice of barnstorming in our area? I was talking to John Fitzgerald from Fredonia, just passed away. You remember the Pittsburgh Pirates coming in the late 20s?
Yes, they did.
Dunkirk?
They all did. Babe Ruth and all the fellows came to Buffalo.
It was Buffalo?
Now, when would they do that? After the season, Vince?
Yeah, after the season, if they were free agents, they could do what they want.
Now, did they do that to pick up extra money or just to play more ball?
Yeah.
It's
Well, they liked it so.
Vince, to hitchhike on that, I remember when the Braves, the Boston Braves played in Celoron against the Spiders
Don't
and the
kid.
Philadelphia Athletics. I
You
don't
remember when they played, they didn't play the Braves, they played the Bees.
the Bees. Yeah.
How's that?
I
played
think
against-
it was the Braves.
I played him.
Yeah.
I played shortstop against Wally Berger,
Mhm.
and you beat him pitching that day. You beat him throwing a curveball out of the reflection of the sun on the lake. They were going like this. Hit the ball. I played.
I remember Lefty Grove pitched up there for the Athletics and Jimmy
Who was,
Dykes.
who was the guy, and I need some help on this one, guys. Who was the guy that pitched for the White Sox? That was a pretty good drinker. He allegedly struck out 3 of the Yankees in the World Series either that year or the year before. That came in here and barnstormed with the,
Was it the Cubs or the White Sox? Was it the Cubs?
Alexander?
who was it?
Grover Cleveland Alexander?
I think so, yeah. He came in to play at Jamestown and also at Bradford. And he's guaranteed he would play. He'd come in to finish in the ball game. But in order to get ready for it, he would stand out there with the old timers under the dugout and a few pops. And Instead of a secret, I batted against them. I was pleased to bat against them. I thought they would bat it. Boy, they, oh, I'm sorry. 3 pitches, that's all. Boy, it was great. And I remember going back to one of my favorite guys. All the guys are favorites down here. Swat Erickson. Swat, formerly of the Detroit Tigers. Swat, we played the first night ball game ever played here. Swat was involved there. They had portable lights. They had the generators there out in the outfield making noise. They had the lights up on poles and windows blowing, shaking like that. And nothing new, but before every game here, when you played twilight ball, the guys were parking cars in the outfield, and the lights on, you could get an extra inning. But they did that night, but that didn't help too much. But SWAT, before the ball game, everything is dark in the ballpark. Everything is dark. And in through the center field comes SWAT Erickson carrying a lantern. Those are the kind of guys we had down there in this ballpark. They certainly got a charge on us.
What happened to baseball in Olean and Bradford and Wellsville?
Baseball?
Yeah, they just couldn't keep it.
Well, I gave that answer to the mayor of Olean. They ran out of money.
Ran out of money.
Ran out of money. Then the competition changed the other way. When the big leaguers come in, and the guys who were in baseball start peddling it. You can look at some of these ads, these magazines, and you see guys in there who used to be associated with teams who are now trying to peddle franchises and leagues. That's what they're doing.
I was reading, I just finished a biography of John McGraw, and it said that he got his start in baseball in Olean. He played his first year in Olean like in 1886 or something. And I had no idea baseball went back that far in this area. It was organized, you know. In terms of
Well, they played an exhibition. They played baseball, I believe, up in Canada before we did here. And the Hall of Fame committee, again off the record, we started with nothing but just a blank piece of paper. No ground rules, no nothing. I think we've come a long way. Things we try to avoid. And the question arose, how many should you embrace? What should be the objectives? And what territory should you embrace? Well, that's pretty tough. We are now to a point where we're going to consider an amendment for to our how do you call it? To our Constitution. Yeah, but
Bylaws? Papers of incorporation?
No, that's the first thing. One thing to our objective. If we started out, we were pretty. You got to hear the way we argue. It was asked at one of the first meetings, should we not take all the guys who were in the Hall of Fame from the Buffalo area and put them in automatically? That was voted down. Then we start talking about districts and territorial lines. And some of us had thought that perhaps we're getting too parochial. We cannot be parochial. We're a little bit different. We're in an area where we've got a great territory. And I'm not against a Canadian being put in the American Hall of Fame if he's made a contribution to the great game of baseball in general, but particularly to someone. I don't mean he set a record of batting. Made a contribution to the spirit of the game. That's a basic. They call it an epilogue or a monologue or something.
No.
Vince, you got any memories of the golden era here in Jamestown when Bisgeier and Newman and Heller and them played here?
Hunter? Newman?
Yeah.
Johnny Newman.
I saw that clown over in the Philippines. That talking. He was on the same team as Joe Garriziola. They played on the Manila Dodgers. I was in the Army. I enjoyed their games. They were at Rizal Coliseum. I was pleased to be able to go see Johnny Newman, who played in the New York-Penn League and I was associated with. See him playing there with Joe Garriziola.
How about John Yocum? What memories does that bring to you?
John Yocum, he
owner here.
owned the franchise here. He got involved with Washington. I think he was a vice president, wasn't he, in Washington? My memory is only what I can recall myself and what I can read about it, but I didn't do the kind of reading I should have read.
Cedric Tallis played, or had a
Cedric
part of
Tallis.
the operation here.
want to ask you, when Babe Ruth played here in Jamestown, were you playing with the Jamestown team at the time?
No.
See, Babe Ruth played at the Spiders at Celoron Park, and he hit a home run that rolled in the lake. That was news here in Jamestown. See, now, while I'm talking, I want to tell a baseball story, Vince. It was on a given Saturday, the Boston Red Sox was playing the Yankees. The manager of the Yankees was Joe McCarthy, and the manager of the Boston Red Sox was Ralph Hull. Now, after the game on Saturday, Joe McCarthy called a meeting of the players.
I'm sorry, we don't want to be rude. We got a ball game to work for tonight. Oh, jeez.
We're in first place.
We're in first place, so we want to do first place on the business.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for coming.
All right, so after the game at Yankee Stadium on a Saturday, Joe McCarthy called a meeting of the players, and he says, gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. Tomorrow we play Boston again, but it's going to be at Fenway Park. And why I'm making the announcement is that tomorrow is Sunday, and I'm going to church. Gentlemen, if you want to join me, the St. Anthony's Church at 9 o'clock, see you in church tomorrow morning. So when Joe McCarthy entered the church, Ralph Hulk was up in the altar lighting a candle. So when Ralph Hulk returned to his seat, Joe McCarthy went up to the altar, and he lit 2 candles. Vince, Joe McCarthy lit 2 candles. So they had the game at Fenway Park, Boston versus Yankees, and the Yankees won the game, 2 candles to 1. So it pays to light candles when you go to church.
We're running down on the, do you have any more thoughts, Vince, that you can share with us?
No,
Any
I've
memories?
enjoyed this tremendously. Believe you me, I have enjoyed myself, I guess, for a long time. And I hope that we get that dugout deal going in Buffalo that we're talking about. Maybe it'll spread. I think the baseball should do that. We can't let these clowns come in and take our territory.
Good, good, we agree to that. Any other questions? Anybody got some questions that?
Bill James, by the way, went back to the West Coast. I never heard from him again.
It's a shame.
Vince, what do you think of Paul Owens?
Oh, Paul Owens, my favorite guy. Right. If they had the designated hitter when he was there, he won it 2 years in a row. Batted .412 1 year, didn't he?
Yep.
Paul Owens, what a guy. You know how he come to be manager here and got back in baseball?
Tell us.
That lady who ran the Olean Ball Club, what was her name? She took over the ball club, was going to operate it by herself.
I don't remember.
So that's the one that Rojak played for. So she said she was going to run the ball club. She said, I need a general manager. Well, we got her James Dario, who could play second base and be the general manager. She said, but I need a manager. I said, you got the best goddamn manager in the world right down in Salamanca, teaching school. She said, who was that? I said, Paul Owen. See, I known Paul for a long time. I observed him. She said, can I get him? I said, the guy that owes me a big one, and this is where to collect your debts. A guy named Joe Reardon is in control of Paul Owen. I said, Paul Owen is on retirement. Retired by the Phillies because you have to go out to the last club you're with. I said, he owes me one, Joe Reardon. She said, what did you do? I said, I was in a ball game one night watching it. When Bradford was playing at Olean, little lifty-cufty started, and the guy from Bradford came out with a bat, the pitcher, ball with a bat, and he swung to hit the other pitcher, and he missed him, but he hit the umpire.
I was there.
He said, what did you do? I said, I got Reardon on the phone the next goddamn day, told Reardon, Now, that guy shouldn't be down just for toward the finish of the season. I said, he's got to go down for at least 30 days for swinging a bat and hitting an umpire. And I said, now, this means it'll extend into next season, and he's a bonus baby, 60,000. I said, he won't be able to go to spring training. He said, what can we do? I said, well, I'll tell you. If you send that guy to Buffalo to see me on the way out, when you go to Senator the next stop, I'll meet him for lunch. We'll have a chat. And that's what he did. So he owed me lunch. So when I called him on the phone, I said, you owe me a big one, Joe. He said, what is it? And I said, remember that left-hand pitcher? Oh, he says, yes. I said, you went pretty good for me. I said, no, I need Paul Owen. He said, for what? I said, that lady named Owens, I think her name is, only needs a guy to manage the ball from Paul Owens. He's over in Salamanca right nearby. And I said, I called Paul before that, got his okay, because he said he's interested in coming back to baseball. So I got him back, and that's how I got back there. Joe Reardon okayed it from the Phillies. That's how things were done. That's why baseball was such a great game. It wasn't done with the committees or all that malarkey. It was done with the spirit. That's right. Yeah.
Russ, I have no questions, but I do want to say what a pleasure it was for me to meet a guy like Vince McNamara, work for him, work with him. Any time I would read in the Buffalo paper anything about Vince McNamara, I would say a prayer for him. He was a rules committee.
He needed a few prayers now.
Believe me, he
You're
got-
very kind.
Yes.
Those recreation days in Buffalo, you needed a few prayers.
Oh.
Yeah,
I was going to tell a story
yeah.
before I opened it. I didn't want to put my foot in my mouth because one day when I was fighting to get $625,000 for artificial ice rinks in Buffalo, I was being stymied by the Capital Expenditures Committee. Elmer Lux was the president of the council. They were stymieing me on that request because they wanted to keep the kids in these little movie houses eating stale popcorn. He was representing. So I wasn't making any headway. I went to a luncheon, just like we're having here. Some lady said, what about your request for this money for those ice rinks? I said, those blokes won't get off their tail. So the next day the paper had it. McNamara called the councilman both books. Bill Lawless, president of the council, Notre Dame graduate. Oh. He called me, he said, did you call those guys blokes? I said, gee, did I? I must have paid you a compliment. He said, why? I said, because I read in the paper the other day where a guy named Zambini over in Australia won the marathon race, and they call him the magnificent bloke. So I paid you guys a compliment.
Hey Vince, here's one I hope you remember. You were in the stands. There was a game in Wellsville. I was the plate umpire, and the base umpire got into an argument on a play situation. He was on first base, and the manager was arguing with the umpire. See, he kept arguing. I was a plate umpire. See, so I went down to the umpire, the manager, and I says, "Come on, hurry this game." He said one word to me, and I said, "You're on the ball game. Get out." So when the game ended, I was in the dressing room. I heard, "No, that was you. You came in the dressing room and you went after the umpire, and you said to him, 'That umpire argued with you too long. Why didn't you put him out?' He says to you, 'I did. I told him he's out of the game.' He says, 'I didn't see you go with your finger. And Elbone wasn't down there a minute. Out he went.' You remember that?"
No, I don't remember.
Then you said to me, "Nalbone, this is another time when you came, I think it was in Erie. I was a plate umpire. You came